Neđe oko 3 sata. Spavali smo ja i onda ste vi uperili ovu lampu u nas. Mi vas ne vidimo, a vi nas vidite. Pa smo se mi prepali, ko je to, što je to. Pa ste onda vi tražili da vas vodi neko od nas trojice dalje.
Stjevo Medigovic was 14 when Hudson startled him with his torch. The shepherds agreed to take Hudson over the mountains to meet the local resistance leaders. To his surprise, they all turned out to be communist and deeply suspicious of British intentions.
I laid with the point, we're not interested damn in politics. We're not interested in monarchy, in communism, any form. It's the people for the people. Yugoslav for Yugoslavia.
Hudson managed to get out his first messages describing the Montenegrin freedom fighters he had found. Meanwhile, weak signals apparently emanating from Yugoslavia had been picked up by a radio station at Portishead in Somerset, but the sender was not Hudson. The sender was identified as Dragoljub Milhailovíc, a Yugoslav colonel who had taken to the hills of Serbia to raise a guerrilla army ready to fight when the Allies returned to the Balkans and the king reclaimed his country. He knew that in Royalist Serbia he would find recruits. Their fathers were the heroes of World War I, driving the Germans back from the Salonika front. Most famous among them were the Chetniks, elite irregulars who had perfected the art of guerrilla warfare under 400 years of Turkish occupation. They had helped establish Serbia's royal dynasty and the freedom to practice the Orthodox religion. Mihailovic's men adopted their name and forbidding appearance, sporting beards as a symbol of mourning, vowing not to shave until their country was once again free. By the autumn, Milhailovíc had the makings of an army. All he needed was recognition and support from the Allies. When the Portishead messages reached royalist circles in London, they urged SOE to throw their weight behind him so that political control of the country would remain in royalist hands. SOE ordered Hudson to proceed directly to Ravnogora, Mihailovic's headquarters in Serbia. But Ravnogora was 200 miles away to the north. It would take 2 weeks of dangerous and difficult walking to get there. Moreover, Hudson was being diverted by his communist escorts to a town called Užice. Here he was brought face to face with their leader.
The word Tito was composed from the two Serb words, Ti, you, and To, that. You do this and you do that. The man who said Tito, he's the commander. Tito then questioned me closely as to what I had come to do, and I replied to coordinate the elements of resistance against the enemy. Tito said, have you any contacts with Russia?
Josip Broz, alias Tito, had traveled the world on false papers as a Moscow-trained Comintern agent, dedicated to promoting the world revolution that Marx had predicted. In 1936, from a secret Paris headquarters, he was responsible for ferrying Yugoslav volunteers down to Spain to join the international brigades. In 1939, he was secretary of the party in Yugoslavia and ordered his comrades to take no part in the capitalist war. But in July 1941, when Germany invaded the Soviet Union, Tito was instructed by Moscow to do his bit for the defense of the Soviet motherland by harassing the Germans in Yugoslavia. With a nucleus of Spanish Civil War veterans, he set about the creation of the Partisans, a politically motivated army of the people. They would not only fight the invader, but would create a new social order in Yugoslavia. In liberated towns, political education would stress brotherhood and unity. Communist organizers would take control of food distribution, communications, propaganda, and medical care. Užice was the capital of the first liberated territory. Hudson was impressed, but was at pains to explain that he had orders to go to Milhailovíc.
He warned me that I wouldn't find Milhailovíc easy to deal with, and that also he hadn't got any great standing among the people. Well, he got no right to tell me. I wasn't interested in that.
Hudson was determined to find out for himself. In October 1941, 5 weeks after leaving the submarine, he walked into the winter headquarters of Colonel Dragoljub Milhailovíc.
I believe that this was the actual room where we met. He said, "Captain Hudson, we've been waiting a long time for you. The Serbs have no love for communism, so I feel that no attention should be given on your part to Tito. And I want all the support concentrated on me. I represent the king, the government, and law and order. It's the only thing we can do. And I do not want irresponsible action against the Germans. I want action such as we can defend. I don't want to do as the communists do, light a fire here, kill a policeman there, and then run away and leave the local population to have their village burned down and their men killed at the rate of 100 to 1. The Germans have been particularly brutal just before I arrived. Practically all the men all round had been taken out by the Germans as reprisals for patrols which the Germans had lost. And they'd taken 100 to 1 reprisals. Morning and night was the most desolating atmosphere because the women were out in the fields, and every sunrise, every sunset, you'd hear the wailing, the Yardikavanya, as they call it, the wailing lamentation for their dead. This had a very strong effect on Milhailovíc. He felt his job was to defend the people, to be the shield rather than the sword. Whereas Tito thought he must attack and not go down without reprisal.
As instructed, Hudson handed over safe codes to Milhailovíc, and a week later he received the first drop of British arms. Milhailovíc took this as a sign that the British recognized his claim to be the only legitimate resistance leader. But Hudson was appalled by the reaction of his men to the drop.
Now we've got evidence of British support. Now we get plenty of arms. Now we are going to liquidate those bastard partisans. Nothing about the Germans at all.
The Milhailovíc-Tito power struggle erupted into civil war. Patriots did not know which way to turn. Families were split down the middle. Villages changed hands up to 15 times. The pattern was set for the next 5 years. Hudson told SOE to stop further arms drops to Milhailovíc until a common front had been established. He then set off for Tito's headquarters, believing it was his duty to bring the two sides together. But his attempts at mediation only incurred the odium and suspicion of both leaders. SOE underestimated the gravity of the civil war and the invidiousness of his position. The one message they took seriously was from Milhailovíc himself. With his authority apparently unchallenged, the propaganda machine was set in motion.
Leading this invisible army is the man they call the unknown soldier, Colonel Dragoljub Milhailovíc, veteran of...
He's a modern Robin Hood, a figure destined to enter 20th century history alongside...